Vande Jagadguru Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Bhakti is the foundation of all spiritual practice. It is both a means and an end itself. What is the nature of bhakti? What does bhakti mean? Bhakti directly means intense love for God. The Navdhabhakti Sutra says it is the nature of supreme love towards God. How does this love towards the divine manifest itself? The first chapter and second sutra of Navdhabhakti Sutra, where Narad Muni describes this nature of the supreme love to that distinguishes love of God from love of earthly objects and relations. Supreme love of God is completely different from the love that we have for anyone or anything else in this world. Even the most intense love between two people in the world cools off and is in course of time changed to indifference, if not to positive dislike. But bhakti is supreme love which knows no change. And there is a very good reason for it. Bhakti is unselfish love. Human love is selfish love. We expect the object of our love to reciprocate. And when there is not adequate reciprocation, the love cools off. Not only this, when the love has served its end and has fulfilled itself, when the little object of love is attained, then too it cools off. Now, the object, being in its very nature limited, finite, and imperfect, does not satisfy humans, which is us, for a long time. Therefore, even love wears out. In the case of bhakti, the object of love is God, who is infinite, eternal, perfect, and full. Therefore, bhakti too becomes eternal, perfect, and unchanging. That is the ideal. But Lord Krishna in the Gita concedes that Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukritin artho jignasu arthati gnane cha bharat shabba tesham gnani nitya yukta eka bhaktir vishishyate, which means, my devotees are of four kinds. the one who is in distress and restores to him for relief, the one who prays to him for wealth, the one who wants to know all about God and his love, and the man who knows, the wise men. Of all of them, the Gnani is the best. The Gnani knows that God in his very self is inevitable, that he should be devoted to God. His love of God is motiveless. It is irresistible. The Gnani's love is comparable only to the desire of a man to breathe. When one is held down in water, how intensely one longs to breathe. He does not think or ask why, but the desire to breathe is irresistible. Similar is the nature of Param Prem. Param Prem reminds us of Yagnavalkya's instructions to Maitreya. Nava are sarvasya kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Not indeed for the sake of all this is all dear, but for the sake of the self all this is dear. One self dwells in all. Unity is the ultimate truth. There is love for all. Navdhabhakti Sutra states that. Love is God and God is love. We begin with this definition of Bhakti Yoga, but let us first briefly note the impulse for taking up Bhakti in the first place. Is it the same as that of an aspire yogi undertaking any path of yoga? One who is harassed by the suffering and unfulfillment inherent in embodied existence in this sansar, the world of birth and death. One seeks to avoid future suffering. Therefore, the opening verse of the 4th century Sankhya Karika makes awareness of suffering a prerequisite for seeking higher truth. It is because of the torment of the threefold suffering from one's own body and mind and from other living entities and the environment that the desire to know the means to counteract them arises. The practices of bhakti are initially performed out of a desire to avoid suffering. They eventually developed into unmotivated, spontaneous, and ecstatic love for God, known as Raganurag Bhakti. It is because of this ultimate result that Bhagavad Puran follows the Bhagavad Gita in an unambiguous way of asserting that bhakti is superior to any other yogas. Bhagavad Gita in chapter 9, verse 46 to 47 states, "This is both because it is an easier path and more joyfully performed, and because it reveals a higher truth than revealed by any other yoga paths. Although the other forms of yoga, one can attain awareness of the Atman, the innermost self, which is the pure consciousness. That is the goal of Patanjali Yoga as well. The practitioner of bhakti, that is the bhakta, however, through bhakti, in addition to the Atma, one can attain awareness culminating ecstatic love for the Paramatma, Ishwar, the Supreme Atma, beyond the individual Atma. The Vaishnavas reading of the Gita and Srimad Bhagavad Puran, Ishwar, also known as Bhagwan, is a truth beyond that of the Atma. And the ultimate Ishwar is Sri Krishna. The object of bhakti we can consider through practices which one takes shelter of Ishwar out of material desperation, but eventually out of unrestrainable, intoxicating love for God. With regards to a formal definition of bhakti, there is naturally a variety of overlapping definitions in circulation in textual sources, highlighting its ingredients and different emphasis given by different sages, the great sages. The Bhakti Sutras of Sri Naradji expresses a few. Bhakti includes attachment to puja, ritual worship of Ishwar. According to Vyasdevji in Srimad Bhagavad Puran, love of Katha, stories about Ishwar's incarnations, and such things. According to Garga Muni, and the offering of all the acts to Ishwar, and the experience of extreme distress upon forgetting him, according to Narad Muni. We use the gendered pronouns he and him and the like, as Ishwar is a masculine entity. Ishwari is the feminine form, focused on Lakshmi, Durga, Sri Radha, or Kali, as opposed to Krishna, where we would use the feminine pronoun forms. The Shandilya Sutra, that is also one of the references for bhakti. Bhakti is a very, very vast subject. It's like an ocean in itself. And to look at bhakti in a better way, what better than the Navdhabhakti? The Bhagavad distills the actual practices of bhakti into 9 basic activities. The 9 activities that constitute the standard classical primary bhakti yoga processes. The 9 characteristics of bhakti that people can offer to Vishnu or Krishna are as follows: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padsevan, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedam. How does this love towards the divine manifest itself? The Srimad Bhagavat delineates the 9 ways, the Navdhabhakti, in which we can lovingly connect with God. Bhakti Yoga is one of the types of yogas mentioned in the Hindu philosophies, which denotes the spiritual practice of fostering loving devotion to a personal form of God. Bhakti is a Sanskrit terminology that signifies an attitude of devotion to a personal God that is typically based on a number of human relationships, such as a beloved, lover, friend, parent, child, master servant, etc. Lord Sri Krishna makes a beautiful statement about the significance of bhakti or devotion in chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktya mam avejanati yavan yaschasmi tatvatha tato mam tatvato gnanatva vishate tad anantaram. By devotion, he who knows me in truth, what and who I am, and knowing me in truth, he forthwith enters the Supreme. In the 9th chapter, Sri Krishna highlights the profoundness of true bhakti, which pleases him the most. This is one of the very, very most important aspects of bhakti. Sri Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, Shlok 26, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tad aham bhakti upahartam asnami prayat tatmanaha, which means whoever offers me with devotion and a pure mind and a heart a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or a little water, I accept this as devotion. This is the ultimate, the Almighty Supreme. All it takes is a bit of devotion, bhakti, and you can offer a drop of water and the Lord accepts. Samoham sarva bhuteshu na me dveshosti na priya ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya mahite teshu chapyaha. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, Shlok 29. The same I am to all beings. To me there is none hateful or dear, but those who worship me with devotion are in me, and I am also in them. Yona harishyati na dveshti na shochati na kankshati shubh shubha parityage bhakti mam ya same priya. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, Shlok 19. He who neither rejoices, nor hates, nor grieves, nor desires, renouncing good and evil, and who is full of devotion, is very dear to me. Shri Krishna states that. Tulyan nindas tuti mauni santushto yena kenanchit aniketa sthiramatir bhaktiman me priyo naraha. He who censure and praise are equal, who is silent, content with anything, and of a steady mind and full of devotion, that man is dear to me. This shloks describes how even the tiniest of gestures in the name of devotion, bhakti, and love for the Lord can be a transforming experience. When God is understood and realized through the process of bhakti, the person becomes realized and enters the state of self-realization. Now, how do we understand true bhakti? The Narad Bhakti Sutra, a discourse on the nature of bhakti based on the experiences of the devotee, Narad Muni, vividly describes bhakti as sa tasmin param prema rupa. Bhakti is of the nature of perfect love for the Lord, devoid of any personal desires or external motives and condition. Amrit Swarupa Cha. Bhakti is like the nectar, which when one drinks, leads to the experience of ultimate bliss, which is not subject to any change. Sat Chid Anand. Having achieved bhakti, one reaches the state of perfection, attains a godlike immortality, and all his desires are completely fulfilled. Once bhakti is attained, one has no other desires in life, as he is freed from the pairs of opposites like pleasure and pain, likes and dislikes. Therefore, he craves for nothing else and has no other purpose to fulfill other than serving the Lord and his devotees. Through bhakti, through devotion, a devotee transcends the worldly desires and bondages. He remains a mere instrument in the hands of God. He becomes freed from the cycle of birth and death. Now, how can we cultivate this true bhakti for the Lord? Bhakti is not a conditional state of the mind, and bhakti has no preconditions or pre-qualifications. There is no prescribed method or formula in bhakti. On the contrary, a devotee surrenders everything unto the Lord and becomes free of ego. Though bhakti is endowed as a result of God's grace, kripa, yet it can be cultivated through constant practice of engaging ourselves in meaningful devotional activities that can bring us closer to the Lord for His grace to flow through us. Srimad Bhagavatam elaborates 9 forms of bhakti, which, if cultivated and practiced regularly, will no doubt lead us closer to the Lord. And those 9 bhaktis are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedan. This is right from the heart of Srimad Bhagavat Puran. A devotee can practice any of these 9 forms of bhakti, whichever suits his nature best. These experiences of God intoxication are highly nostalgic. It is said that knowledge without bhakti is useless. Let us then know the 9 forms of devotion that would take us closer to the Supreme Lord. Shravanam is the first and the foremost among the 9 forms of devotion. It means listening to the divine glories of the Lord pertaining to His form, qualities, leelas, or divine plays, His miracles, His spoken words like the Bhagavad Gita. By listening to His glories, we begin to subconsciously develop love and reverence for Him. Shravanam can be cultivated through regular satsangs, by listening carefully to the words of the wise and that of the ancient seers, and also regularly listening to the teachings of the scriptures. By hearing the stories of the Lord's divine activities, the devotee's mind becomes purified from bad qualities like lust, anger, greed, and envy. This process of transformation within the heart is described beautifully in the 5 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is actually the complete summary of the Bhagavad philosophy. Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayanto Sto Hayabdrani Vidunoti Suhit Sutam. And it goes on. Basically, all the shlokas, they signify to hear about the Lord Krishna from the Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself an auspicious and righteous activity. Such an ardent devotee who keeps himself constantly engaged in hearing about the Lord is blessed and purified by Him who is dwelling in his heart. By cultivation of devotional services, he is relieved from the modes of passion, rajas, and ignorance, tamas. Rajas and tamas, these are the guns that he will be relieved from, and therefore material lusts will diminish. When these impurities are wiped away, the devotee remains steady in his position of pure goodness, sattva gun, and becomes enlivened by devotional service and understands the science of God perfectly. The Bhakti Yoga severs the hard note of material bondage and enables one to attain the state of asamshayam samagram, which means the total understanding and realization of the Supreme. The story of Raja Parikshit, King Parikshit, given in Srimad Bhagavatam, is a prime example of a devotee who exemplified Shravanam. Due to a curse, Parikshit had only 1 week to live, but he attained salvation, mukti, by listening to the glories of Krishna in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was narrated by the holy Shukdevji Maharaj in the forests of Naimisharanya. Therefore, to cultivate Shravanam, 3 qualities are needed: a quest, yearning to listen, listening with total faith, and putting into practice what has been listened to. The act of listening itself becomes bhakti, worship of the Lord, and the process of Shravanam becomes effective as a form of devotion, leading us to liberation, mukti. Kirtanam. Kirtanam is the second form of devotion, which involves singing the praise of the Lord's magnificence and omniscience with heartfelt devotion. By constantly chanting the Lord's name, devotees like Dhruv, you remember the North Pole, Dhruv Tara, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Draupadi, Prahlad Maharaj, Meera, Sri Vallabhacharya Ji, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Tukaram Ji, all of these examples of devotees have achieved God realization. Chanting God's name brings relief to the devotees' minds. It is said that Kirtanam is the only way to achieve mukti or salvation in this Kali Yuga. There are a few selection verses from different Vedic literatures glorifying the significance of chanting the holy names of the Lord. Bhagavata Adi Purushya Narayanasya Namocharan Matrena Nirdat Kalir Bhavati. This is the Kali Santaran Upanishad verse 3. Simply by chanting the transcendental names of the Lord Narayan, all the sins will be cleansed in Kali Yuga. Whether it is the Mahamantra Shri Krishna Sharanamamma, or Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, or even Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The sixth, the to save oneself from the evil effects of Kali Yuga, there is no other alternative that can be found in the entire Veds except the chanting of the Lord's name. Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Namaiva, Kevalam, Kalo Nasya, Eva Nasya, Eva Nasya, Eva Gatir Anyatha. Brihan Naradiya Purana, chapter 38, Shlok 1 to 6, which is very, very profound, and it states, in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy names of the Supreme. There is no other way. There is no other way. And there is no other way. Narad Muni, the sage Narad, is the supreme example of one who realized the divine by continuously singing the glories of God in all circumstances and at all times. He also demonstrated to the world the supreme spiritual efficacy of singing the Lord's glories. And from our scriptures, through which Narad Muni explained the significance of Kirtanam, is the story of Mrigari. Mrigari was a very cruel-hearted hunter. Yet, Narad Muni instructed him to chant the holy name of Ram. Being unable to appreciate the name of Ram, Mrigari was not able to chant. On seeing this, Narad Muni also told him to chant the word Mara instead, meaning death. Mrigari was an expert at killing animals, and he specially enjoyed half killing the animals to watch them suffer to death. So when Narad Muni told him to chant death, which is Mar, Mrigari found it very easy and natural. He sat and started chanting the word Mara, Mara, Mara over and over again. When he kept doing this, the gap between the words disappeared, and instead of chanting Mara, 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 he was actually chanting Ram, 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 Mara. So when you say that together, Mara or Maram, Maram, Ram, see? So he started actually chanting the name of Ram. The name of Sri Ram is so powerful that it developed love for God even in the heart of the cruel hunter Mrigari. He did not know he was chanting the name of the Supreme Lord Sri Ram, whose name, even accidentally chanted once, would purify any hearts. The very same Mrigari, the hunter, by continuously chanting the name of Sri Ram, transformed into the great Rishi Valmiki. Such is the amazing power of chanting the Lord's name. It is not amazing that by chanting his name, personalities like Rishi Valmiki have become purified and attained perfection. Smaranam. Smaranam is the constant remembrance of the Lord, reveling in the contemplation of his beauty, majesty, and compassion. This is the third form of devotion. In the Narsim Puran, there is a statement about meditation on the form of the Supreme Bhagavad Charan Dvanda Dhyanam Nirdvandavam Miritam Papinopi Prasangena Vihitam Suhitam Param. This is taken from Bhakti Ras Smriti Sindhu. Meditation focusing on the lotus feet of the Supreme is transcendental and beyond the experience of material pain and pleasure. By such meditation, even one who is sinful can be delivered from all the sins he has committed in his life. In the holy book of Vishnu Dharma, there is a statement about remembering the personal traits and qualities of the Supreme Lord. Ye kurvanti sada bhaktya gunanusmaranam hare prakashina kaloshogaste pravishanti hare padam. Those who always contemplate on the qualities of the Supreme with devotion are freed from all impurities and enter Supreme Hari's abode. In the Padma Puran, there is a statement about remembering the activities of the Lord. Sarva Madhurya Sarani Sarva Bhuta Mayani Cha Dhyayan Harascharitrani Lalitani Vimuchyate. A person who is always engaged in the meditation on the Leelas and the wonderful activities of the Supreme surely becomes freed from all material contamination. The greatest example of a devotee who realized God through Smaranam is Prahlad Maharaj, little Prahlad, who was just a little child at the time he attained God realization. Though Prahlad was put into many difficulties and tragedies by his atheists, father Hiranyakashipu, still he constantly remembered the Supreme Lord Narayan right till the end. The Lord gave him his darshan in the form of Narsimha Avatar, the great Narsimha Avatar, killing Hiranyakashipu and protecting little Prahlad. Therefore, even in all extreme sufferings and pain, Prahlad kept remembering the Supreme and never lost his faith in the Lord. From this, we understand that a true and a pure devotee who constantly remembers the Lord in all situations is never unhappy in any situations of life. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayana para sarvena kutaschana bibhyati swarga pavarga narkesha api tulyartha darshina. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which states, Devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of Lord Narayan never fear any conditions of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the name of the Lord or the service of the Lord. Padasevanam. Padasevanam is the worship of the Lord by concentrating upon honoring his feet or paduka. It is the fourth form of devotion. Padsevanam is an innate sense of surrender to the Supreme, leading to the worship of the Lord's feet. This form of intimate service to of the Lord is called Padsevanam. But what is the significance of worshipping the Lord's feet? To approach a person's feet is a sign of humility, and that is why in the Sanatan Vedic Hindu Dharma, in the Indian tradition, we are taught to touch our elders and parents' feet as a token of respect. The feet of the Supreme Lord are so sweet and beautiful that they are known as Pada Pankajam or lotus feet, as they are so soft and red like the lotus petals. Simply thinking of the Lord's feet takes devotees to deep feelings of love, longing, and ecstasy. Even the mighty devas were delighted when little Krishna wandered the forests of Vrindavan, leaving his footprints in the dust. And Krishna's dear friends, the gopis, would press this dust against their heads and hearts, lost in ecstatic trance. Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 10, describes the Lord's beautiful feet in detail. The two great personalities, Krishna and Balram, had both made the land of Raj extremely beautiful by decorating it with their footprints, which had many auspicious markings, such as the flag, thunderbolt, the rod for controlling elephants, and lotus flowers. On Krishna's feet, there are 19 symbols of Narayan or Vishnu, Sri Hari. On his right foot are a lotus, flag, chakra, umbrella, four swastiks, Uddha Rekha, which is an upcurving line, barley corn, elephant god, ashtakon, which is the octagon, four blackberry fruits, and vajra. On his left foot are four water pots, a conch, a unstrung bow, cow's hoof, fish, crescent moon, akash, which is the sky, and a triangle. The Skanda Puran states the particular places on his feet where Krishna carries the mark of the flag and also other marks and the reasons for these marks. Now, at the base of the large toe on his right foot, the Supreme Lord carries the mark of a disc, Sudarshan, which cuts down the six mental enemies of his devotees. At the bottom of the middle toe of that same foot, the Supreme Lord, Sri Hari, Vishnu, Sri Krishna, has a lotus flower which increases the greed or um, the intoxication for him in the minds of the bee like devotees who meditate on his feet. At the base of his small toe is a thunderbolt which smashes the mountains of his devotees' reactions to the past sins. And in the middle of his heel is the mark of an elephant goat, which brings the elephants of his devotees' minds under control. The joint of his right large toe bears the mark of a barley corn, which represents all kinds of enjoyable opulence. Therefore, worshipping the Supreme's lotus feet by itself is a great spiritual blessing, because anyone charmed by those transcendental feet loses attraction to the pursuits of the short-lived pleasures in life. Brahmaji explains the significance of Pad 7 in Srimad Bhagavatam, and he states, "For one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Supreme, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Murari, the enemy of the demon Mur. For him, the ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's hoofprint. His goal is Parampadam or Vaikunt, the place where there are no material miseries, not the sansar, and not the place where there is danger at every step." And that is one of the verses of Srimad Bhagavat, chapter 10. There is another beautiful example of bhakti extolled in Pad SEVANAM, which is none other than the Supreme Goddess Lakshmi herself, the consort of Supreme Vishnu. Goddess Lakshmi is always seen massaging the lotus feet of the Supreme. This is absolutely remarkable, as noted in the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 1. The goddess of fortune, although by nature very restless and moving, could not leave the Supreme Lord's feet. Goddess Lakshmi is often restless in the nature, in the form of wealth and good fortune, both of which are elusive and temporary. Mortals cannot control Goddess Lakshmi as much as we try, and many waste away their lives trying to control Goddess Lakshmi. As a devoted servant of the Supreme, the Goddess of Fortune bestows her bounty only with the Supreme's blessings. Therefore, Pada Sevanam offers a deep spiritual lesson. Though Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth and presides over all forms of prosperity, she shows to the world that serving the Supreme's feet is greater than all the treasures on earth. In the present times, we often worship Shri, which means wealth, more than Hari, the Supreme. What we do not realize is that by worshipping the Supreme's feet, even wealth is achieved automatically. What foolishness is it to go after money, forgetting the lotus feet of the Supreme, which are the fountain source of all prosperity. Archanam. Whoever offers me with devotion and a pure mind or a heart, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or a little water, I accept this as devotion. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, slok 26. Archanam, the fifth form of devotion, is the complete offering in the form of pujas or ritualistic worship, be it seva in Nathadwara or puja in Badrinath. Worship, chanting mantras, singing bhajans, offering arti, food, flowers, and even clothes to the Supreme. Love expresses in giving, and as love for the Supreme Lord grows in the heart of the devotee, he naturally wants to offer his best. By doing this, the devotee derives inner satisfaction and inspiration. Why is God worshipped in this way? The Vedic scriptures prescribe worship of the deity as a means to develop a relationship with the God as a person. While it is true that God is Paramatma, it is also true that as Paramatma, He permeates all matter and is present in every atom, be it living or non living. God cannot be separated from His creation, and so to worship His form, even if constructed of physical materials, is certainly to worship Him. Therefore, the scriptures mention a variety of materials that may be used to create the deity, including earth, sand, and even the mind. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhakta shraddhayarchitam ichchati tasya tasyachalam shraddham tameva vidat hamyaham. Whatsoever form of any devotee desires to worship with faith, that same faith of his I make firm and unflinching. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7. There is only one God, yet He manifests in many different forms. As the Supreme, He enjoys relationships with all living beings. Each relationship is intimate and unique. In His form as Supreme Lord Sri Ram, He enjoyed the role of a king and as a faithful husband to Mother Sita and a benevolent son. In his form as a supreme Narsim, he was ferocious and protector of his true devotee, Prahlad. In his form as baby Krishna, he was playful and mischievous. All of these roles are manifestations of the same supreme personality. And these divine avatars of the Supreme may be worshipped in a deity form. Although each of these various forms of the God is supreme, a devotee may feel a stronger attraction for a particular deity. Therefore, one can perform archanam to all the deities or to a particular deity personally preferred as the Ishta Devta. Archanam can be done in a temple or also in one's personal altar at home, which can be referred to as puja or seva. Sometimes even Manasi puja or Manasi seva can be done at the mind level. Archanam or deity worship combines an external ritual with internal meditation. We can do Archanam by offering flowers to the Lord, garland to the Lord, chanting His holy names like the Vishnu Sahasranam or the Ashtottarams. Aarti is one aspect of Archanam. In most of the temples, after the ritualistic worship of the deity with flowers and other offerings, the sanctum doors are closed during alankaram or dressing up, and nivedyanam or feeding of the Lord. During Aarti, auspicious item like incense sticks, a flame, ghee lamp with conch shells with water, a cloth, flowers, chamar, and a peacock fan are weighed before the deity to offer protection by dispelling inauspicious influences. The Skanda Puran states the description of the result of seeing Aarti of the deity. If someone sees the face of the Supreme while Aarti is going on, he can be relieved of all sinful reactions coming from all the thousands and millions of past births. He is even excused from a sin such as killing of a Brahmin or similar prohibited activities. That is very, very intense, very, very powerful. This explains the importance of regularly visiting temples for prayers and worshipping the Lord and witnessing the Aarti in the form of Archanam. In this form of worship, Prithuraja from the Srimad Bhagavatam demonstrated the significance of Angarachan or using each of his sense organs in worshipping the Supreme. Netra Kamalam Samarpayami. I offer my lotus eyes to the Supreme Lord. Shotra Kamalam Samarpayami. I offer the lotus ears to the Supremes. Hridaya Kamalam Samarpayami. I offer the lotus of my heart to the Supreme. In this manner, Prithuraja regarded every organ of his body as the lotus to be offered to the Supreme Lord in worship. This is one of the most wonderful aspects of Archanam, as it employs all the four forms of devotional service discussed so far. That is, hearing about the Lord, chanting His names, remembering Him, and serving His lotus feet. It is a very, very significant form of devotion that can be practiced as a routine in our daily lives to seek God's grace. Vandanam. Vandanam is supreme reverence for prayer to the Lord and is the sixth form of devotion. In this form of devotion, a devotee begins to see his favorite form of the Lord everywhere, in all beings and all objects. Vandanam is an intensely personal process, and it may also be the most universal form of bhakti. Through universal prayers that make up the traditions of the different religions and cultures of the world, creating our most ancient ties and our most common language, the language of a sincere prayer to the Supreme. So many various forms of prayers, simple prayers of gratitude, prayers for the welfare of loved ones, prayers for the speedy recovery of ill health, and of course, prayers for some coveted desires to be fulfilled. Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukritino Arjun artho jignasurtharthi gnanani cha bharat shab tesham gnani nitya yukta ek bhakti vishayate priyo hi gnanino tyarthmaham sa cha mama priya. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, Sri Krishna states, there are four kinds of virtuous men worshipping me, O Arjun. They are the distressed, the seekers of knowledge, the seekers of wealth, and the wise. O Lord of the Bharatas, of them the wise, ever steadfast and devoted to the one excels meaning the best. For I am exceedingly dear to the wise, and he is extremely dear to me. Through sincere prayers, great personalities like Akrurji have realized the Supreme. Akrurji, his prayers are explained in detail in Srimad Bhagavatam, Dasmaskand. One of them, which is, O son of Vasudev, Shri Krishna, obeisance to you, within whom all living beings reside, O supreme of the mind and senses, again I offer you my obeisance. O Master, please protect me, who has surrendered unto you. Akrur, the uncle of Lord Krishna, was one of the courtiers of Kans, who was sent as a messenger to invite Krishna to Mathura to be killed. Akrur considered this as the greatest of opportunities just to meet Lord Krishna. And he was so immersed in so much longing and devotion to meet him in Vrindavan. As soon as he reached Vrindavan, when he saw the Lord's footprints, he immediately stopped the chariot and jumped down from his chariot and bent down and saluted the sacred soil, offered his obeisance just to the footprints of the Lord. His heart was filled with deep satisfaction even to see the footprints, and prayed sincerely to the Lord, free from all kinds of fear and grief that was instigated by Kans. He therefore attained the Lord through this form of devotion, Vandanam. There is also another great example of this, and that is Queen Kunti in the Mahabharata. Her prayer to Lord Krishna was, Namasye Purusham Tvadyam Ishwaram Prakrite Param Alakshyam Sarva Bhutanam Antarbahir Avasthitam. Srimad Bhagavat Puran, chapter 1. O Krishna, I offer my obeisance unto you, because you are the original personality and you are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all. Queen Kunti, the Pandavas and the Queen were fortunate to be associated with Lord Sri Krishna, who helped them endure death and separation of loved ones, financial ruin, and even humiliation. After the Kurukshetra war, when finally the trials of Pandavas came to an end, Krishna prepared to leave. Kunti prayed to him, O Krishna, let our sufferings come again. For when we see them, we see you, and then our birth and death are through. Later she prayed, please cut the ropes of my attachment to my family so my love can flow to you alone, like the Ganga to the sea. Most of us would be reluctant to offer such prayers, but not the fearless Queen Kunti. The significance of this form of devotion is not just for humans to practice, but even animals and other beings can offer this form of devotion to attain the Lord. The best example of an animal that attained the Lord through Vandanam is Gajendra. The last session we talked about Gajendra Moksha from Srimad Bhagavad Puran. Now, this is a prime example, Gajendra, the elephant king. The crocodile, when he caught Gajendra's leg in these mighty jaws, and despite Gajendra's own massive power and assistance of his elephant herd, we observed he was unable to free himself. Now, as Gajendra saw his death approaching, he realized that no one could save him except the Supreme Lord. From deep within, the elephant's beings arose in the form of a prayer and devotion. And moved by that pure-hearted song of surrender, Krishna appeared and killed the crocodile, and Gajendra attained moksha. So, Vandanam, this prayer is a reflection of our spiritual realization and our unique relationship with God. Prayer is everything from our most intimate conversations with the Lord in our hearts to the universal expressions of praise and gratitude echoing through time. It is not a language of words, but a language of the heart. Beautiful prayers uttered with no feelings and mean nothing to the Supreme. Devotion comes with the feelings, with the prayer. The beauty of a prayer, however articulated, lies in its sincerity. Dasyam. Dasyam is the seventh form of devotion, where the devotee sees himself as not just the servant of the Lord, but also the servant of the Lord's devotees, with no sense of inferiority. This is the most important point. No sense of inferiority. Dasyam refers to a heartfelt yearning to be of a personal service to the Supreme. It is the ultimate expression of humility, yet it is bold in its aspiration to such a lofty position. To attain dasyam, one must completely understand that God is a person. He is not our creation. He is a person of such wonder and magnitude that this vast, imponderable world is just a tiny spark of his creative ability. To serve him, we must come to know this magnificent person and understand his desires. And while he kindly recognizes all attempts at service, the self centered cannot attain the intimate experience of true service to the Supreme Lord. Service to God is so intimate that he offers it only to the most trustworthy souls. The Ramayana offers an extraordinary example of personal service. Sri Ramchandraji did not have to instruct Hanuman or offer endless encouragement, as Hanuman's pure love for the Lord itself enthralled him when he got the opportunity to serve Sri Ramchandraji. During his search for Sita, Hanuman was captured and ill treated by Ravan. Yet, Hanuman's desire to serve Sri Ramchandraji remained unchanged. This is one of the very, very important points. Hanuman prayed to Sri Ram with no expectations whatsoever, but prayed only for his blessings to be with him forever. He prayed to Ram, asking, "My dear Lord, if you like, you can give me salvation from this material existence or the privilege of merging into your existence. But I do not wish any of those things. I do not wish anything which limits my relationship with you as a servant to the Master, even after liberation." Hanuman is the supreme example of Dasya Bhakta, or the one who realized God through serving him wholeheartedly. So for us, dasyam means not only to serve the Lord directly, but to serve even those who serve the Lord himself. Our aspiration should rather be to serve the servants of the servants of the servants of the Lord, stretching our humility as far as our realizations will allow. Das anudas anudas. It is said that the servants of the devotees of the Lord are even kinder than the Lord himself. That's one reason we need a guru to attain dasyam. True humility naturally appears in a true guru, whose heart is ever satisfied as the servant of the Lord's servant. Das anudas. Sakhyam. This eighth form of devotion, wherein the devotee considers himself to be the friend or sakha of the Supreme, just like the body that we see and feel around us is temporary and fickle, so is the material world. But there is another world composed exclusively of spiritual energy, in which everything is sentient and full of love for the Supreme. For example, in Vrindavan, where Krishna enjoyed his childhood, even the blades of grass there have a vibrant relationship with the Lord, who spent his days taking care of his cows and playing with his friends. Think of those friendships. Krishna's friends chased him in their games, massaged his legs when he rested, and fed him with sweets into his mouth, and vice versa, whilst having food together. Their love for Krishna was so complete, they were blind even to his divinity and only knew how much they loved their wonderful friend. In this way, who else can be our best friend other than the Supreme? Arjun is another classic example of a devotee who achieved perfection through friendship with the Lord. Krishna was so familiar to Arjun that he even asked Krishna to drive his chariot in the battle of Kurukshetra. And yet, when Arjun became confused as he faced his relatives on the battlefield, he turned to his friend and charioteer for help because Arjun had such a friendly rapport with the Lord. His turning to Krishna for instruction was a shift in their relationship. When Krishna reveals his magnificent universal form to his friend Arjun, he was aghast and stammered out an apology. I have in the past addressed you as O Krishna, O Yadav, O my friend, without knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. This is a statement or a prayer to Krishna by Arjun in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11. Krishna is so kind and merciful that in spite of such opulence, he played with Arjuna as a friend. Such is the transcendental, loving reciprocation between the devotee and the Lord. Although Arjun had seen the opulence in Krishna's universal form, he could not forget the friendly relationship with him. This is the beauty of having an eternal friendship with the Lord. Completely pure souls in the spiritual world enjoy a friendship with the Lord because they have no desire for anything else. In the text written by Sri Vallabhacharya ji, Madhurashtakam, it states, how sweet is Lord's friendship with us, Sakhyam Madhuram. Recognizing that the Lord has already extended himself to us, it is left up to us to reciprocate his friendship. Atmanivedam. Atmanivedam is the ninth form of devotion, which means yielding fully or complete surrender to the will of the Supreme with no traces of ego whatsoever left in a devotee's heart. Completely filled with devotion to God, the devotee gains the knowledge of his true self in this form of devotion, where the devotee and the Lord become one. In the Narsim Puran, the Lord Narsim says, anyone who prays unto me and takes shelter from me becomes my ward, and I protect him always from all sorts of calamities. The same is stated in Bhagavad Gita by Sri Krishna. Anyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupashate tesham nitya biyuktanam yogashemam Vahamyaham, which means he who constantly remembers me and worships me at all times is protected, and his welfare is taken care of me at all times. Bali Raja, the king Bali, is the perfect example of Atmanivedam or complete self surrender unto the Lord. In Vamana avatar of Lord Vishnu, King Bali welcomed the Lord disguised as a young Brahmin with open arms and promised him that he would offer him whatever he desired. He offered to wash the feet of Vaman and sanctify himself by sprinkling that water on his own head. Bali's preceptor Shukracharyaji was a all-knowing, educated, well-versed counselor. Aware that Vaman was an incarnation of Vishnu, he advised Bali Raja to go back on his offer to Vamandev. But Bali's magnanimity and greatness may be seen here in the fact that he refused to accept the advice of Shukracharyaji. Bali then said, "When the Supreme Lord Himself has come to me with outstretched hands, asking for a gift, what greater good fortune I can have than making the gift from my humble hands? I am prepared to give away everything regardless of what happens to me." Bali Raja told Lord Vishnu, "I offer to you, O my Lord, all my wealth, possessions, as well as myself. I take refuge in you. Protect me, O Lord." Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8. This was the sense of abnegation with which Bali Raja offered himself to Lord Vaman. Therefore, he attained the Lord through his selfless devotion and surrender to the Supreme. In other words, we should learn how to cry for the Lord in tears of bhakti. And such tears are the prize for the highest perfection. The feeling of oneness with the Lord and all His divine beings is achieved only in the spirit of the final form of devotion to the Supreme, Atmanivedam. When cattle try to devour a newly planted sapling, the plant struggles to live and grow more leaves. But when surpassing these struggles, the plant grows into a tree, then the cattle is no longer a threat to the tree. Likewise, when our devotion is in its initial stages, the ill effects of the material world affect us to a great extent. But when we continue to involve ourselves in various forms of bhakti with patience, perseverance, we soon become strong enough to the ill effects of the material world, and they do not affect us anymore. There will always be tests. We gradually attain the states of Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, and Sayujya Mukti, which is liberation. When we worship the Lord, we attain the world, the lok of that deity. Here we end this bhakti is bliss, and more blissful would be our lives when we cultivate and practice the discussed Navdhabhakti, 9 forms of devotion in our journey of life towards the Supreme. The path of bhakti is the easiest if practiced regularly. It would gradually uplift us in the progressive realization of the Supreme Lord.